Join the glorious evolution. Inferior constructs. They are obsolete. Relinquish the flesh. Destroy, then improve.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are playing Viktor today. To go over the basics really fast for the newer players. Viktor is a late game scaling control mage. Extremely strong in teamfights. He has pretty much every single thing you need from a mid laner. His early game is quite weak, except for the first few levels. Especially his level 1 is insanely strong. He actually has one of the strongest level 1s in the game. And that is because of his Q. So when you use it, it deals damage and then you get a shield and then your next auto attack becomes empowered. Empowered means that it deals more damage, but this ability also makes it so that empowered auto attack no longer counts as a projectile. So that means that it will go through stuff like the Yasuo's wind wall. You see is that laser you saw right here. That is like his main wave clearing ability. And then his passive guys. So whenever you farm last hit minions, get champion takedowns, farm jungle camps and such, then you get stacks of your passive. And every single time you get 100 stacks, then you can upgrade one of your basic abilities. You need to do this 3 times before Viktor becomes a real champ. When you last hit cannon minions guys, then you get 5 stacks. A normal minion is going to give you 1 stack, so you can already see how important cannon minions are, because they almost give as many stacks as an entire minion wave. So if you miss it, then you are definitely going to be delayed with that passive. Champion takedowns give you 25 stacks, but it's not a champ you play to get kills with in the laning phase. Sometimes you will be lucky to get a few kills, and if you do so, then you're gonna get that passive upgrade up a lot faster. But champion takedowns do give a lot of stacks. The main priority in the laning phase is to farm up. That's your only goal every single game. It is not a champ you play to pick up kills on in the early game. It is a late game scaling champ, one of the strongest late game champs in the game. So of course it means that his early game is going to be quite weak. Focus on farming. And then laser guys, you can use it to last hit with, but try to poke the enemy champion at the same time. So whenever you use it to last hit a minion, also try to aim it in a way so it also ends up hitting the enemy champ. That's how you get to poke them down a lot, and that's also how you get to establish control over the lane. And your W is your only CC ability until you get all 3 augments. So when people stand inside that zone, they're going to be slowed down, and then if they stay in there for long enough, they're going to be CC'd, so they cannot move. You don't really want to spam this ability off cooldown. It's more, if you get ganked, then you can like place it in front of the enemy jungler, so they end up running into it. That way it makes it harder for them to gank you, allows you to escape. You can also use it in a fight, where you place it in the direction you think the enemy champion will be escaping towards. So it helps you with engages as well, and then you can also use it to cut off entrances. For example, when you're contesting objectives and such, then you can place it in the entrances and then people will not be able to walk in. So focus on farming. Remember to abuse that level 1 guys, because you have one of the strongest level 1s in the game just because of their Q. It gives you double damage. You get to damage people twice with the first part of it and then the empowered auto attack. And then you also get a shield, so you can get some really good trades off. So you can abuse that Q, but it doesn't mean that you can do that every single game. Just stay back as much as possible. This champ is immobile guys, until he gets at least that Q upgrade. He's very immobile. That's why Phase Rush is such a good keystone on him, because it gives him what he's really missing, that mobility to kite people. You just stay back, focus on farming, getting those 3 augments. When you have that, that's when he becomes a real champ. But also the first augment is also really good, because it gives you that broken ass wave clearing ability. So you got your ultimate guys. When you throw it down, the first part of it will cancel out channeling abilities. So if you see somebody teleporting, you know, with TP, if you throw that ultimate right on top of them, the first part is going to cancel it out. It also works on something like a Malzah's ultimate, it is going to cancel it out, so make sure that you remember to use it that way. But most of the damage in this ultimate is in the ticks, you know, the damage that comes in after the initial damage. That's why most of the damage is in. And it can be really hard to hit in the early stages because it moves so slow. But it is going to get a lot better afterwards as you get the augments and also as you get slows. So we are sitting on 62 stacks right now. We need 100 stacks, then we're gonna upgrade the E. Once we have that E, that's like one of the strongest non-ultimate abilities in the game when it comes to wave clearing, because you can one-shot a minion wave. You can see how slow that ultimate moves. You don't always have to use it for damage though. If you desperately need to clear out the wave, then you can just drop it on the minion wave. Because it's an ultimate you rarely get to use in the laning phase in the early game. You're mainly playing to farm it out. So if you desperately need to show out the wave, then you can just use that E and drop the ultimate on top of the minions, and that should be enough to clear it out. The only consistent thing you can do every single game is to farm up when you play Viktor. It is not a champ that has a lot of pressure in the early game. So the only thing you have to focus on is farming up. Get those augments upgrades, because when you get those, that's why he becomes a lot stronger. We're gonna go for the new mythic item, guys. It's really OP in Viktor. It's really OP. Because it's a late game scaling champ, and it also makes it so champs like Assassins and champs like Xin Zhao, burst champs and such, they will not be able to do anything to you. The moment they engage, the damage is going to be reduced so much that you can easily trade back without losing all of your HP. This item is really good in most of your games. You can actually go for it every single game. But it's especially good if you play against Assassins, Bruisers and such, because the moment they engage onto you, they will have a very hard time dealing any damage at all. We're very close to having the first upgrade, and we're gonna put that into E. That's what you want to do every single time. Because from that point and onwards, you will have some pressure in the mid lane, because you have the wave clear up. So right now you can really pressure a lot. The assassins, for example, they can just shout out the wave and then roam, and you'll be stuck under the tower. But as soon as you get that E upgrade, guys, then you will be able to show out that wave instantly. So it makes it a lot harder for people to roam on you. But that first upgrade, always put that into E. So what happens now with your E, guys, is that it gets that extra damage part, the aftershock, and that's why most of the damage is in this ability. So it's gonna one-shot the backline minions, so you want to aim it in a way that it hits the entire minion wave. And just look at how OP this wave clear is. Now you get to have some tempo. We can recall already stuck under the tower. It's also a lot easier to farm up for the passive stacks a lot faster now, because you get that super OP wave clearing ability. So when you show out the wave, then you can like walk into the enemy jungle, take out his raptors and such. You can really take away a lot of stuff. Make sure that you hit as many minions as possible with that E so you can push it out fast. We're sitting at 21 stacks right now. If we get a champion takedown, guys, this is like a somewhat realistic game where we don't get a lot of kills in the early game, but we're sitting on 10 CS per minute. That's without getting any kills whatsoever, and that's why it's so important that you focus on farming. This is a champ that I use as a blind pick in high elo. When I don't know what the enemy team comp looks like, what the enemy mid laner champion is, that's when I like to pick Viktor. Even though he's pretty hard to master, hard to play in a lot of matchups, if you get experience in this champ, then it is a champ that can work out into most matchups. I like to use him as a safe blind pick, even though he definitely has some hard matchups. You know, assassins, or a long range mages that can also be very difficult, you can still manage if you are mechanically good at this champ. You really want to make sure that when you're trading, then you want to make sure that the second part of your E hits. That's where most of the damage is in this ability. And it's very difficult early on, but as you get the last augment that makes it so all of your basic abilities will slow people, that's when it becomes easier. So now we got the new mage mythic item, super OP in Viktor, guys. It gives you HP so you can survive the early game. HP is so crucial into those difficult lanes like the assassins. You become a lot tankier, but then of course also that super strong passive. It makes it so difficult for people to engage onto you because they will deal reduced damage. It's like a Malzahar's passive pretty much. So when they engage onto you, they're gonna deal reduced damage, and it's especially a big counter pick to the assassins. 42 stacks right now. We desperately want those 3 augments. When we have those, that's where Viktor becomes a real champ. But we have presence in the mid lane now just because of our OP wave clearing ability. You can see it's still difficult to catch down those super mobile champs. Even though it's difficult, your main priority is not to kill them. If you can push them out of the lane, make sure they're not getting any farm, then that's also a big win for you. You see, we got so many stacks, 25 stacks just from a champion takedown. And then we got another takedown right here. So you don't have to get the kills. As long as you get the assist as well, then that also counts. So now we suddenly went to 92 stacks. A couple more minions and we're gonna have the second upgrade. So it is mid lane kingdom when you play this champ. You want to AFK mid lane as long as possible in the early game. You can't really help out your jungler if he's trying to contest his skull crab or something. He has to know that Viktor is a late game champ. You don't have that much presence in the early game. Now I got the second hex core upgrade, and that is going to go into the Q. So when you have the Q upgrade, guys, it's going to make it so every single time we use our Q, we get a stronger shield, but we also get bonus movement speed. So now he suddenly becomes a lot more mobile, much better at kiting people. But not enough for that. The item build we are going for gives him even more mobility. So it's a champ that becomes really strong at kiting as soon as we get the items. So this mythic item shield is up. Even if Ari engages with every single thing she has right now, then she's going to deal reduced damage. It's not that effective on champs like Ari because she has true damage on the returning part of her Q. If you play against champs with a lot of true damage, then of course this is not going to work out, but it is going to help against everyone else. We're going for the lucidity boots here. That's something I do every single game on Viktor unless I really need the mercs. You can also go for sock shoes for that early game damage, but lucidity boots are the best boots in the game for Viktor. You get that ability haste and reduced cooldown on your summoner spells. And that already is more than enough, because it's a late game scaling champ, so he's already going to have a lot of damage in the late game. We need to make sure that he can use his abilities as often as possible, and also for that survivability, with that summoner spells coming off cooldown faster. And then it's also cheaper than the other boots, so there's also that. We are consistently sitting at 10 CS per minute. This is not something you're going to do every single game. Like 99% of my games, I am above 7 CS per minute. If you can do that as well, then you're really going to come out on top in most of your games. So you can see you do have a lot of pressure now, especially with that Q. You can use it to kite with. You can also throw it on a minion just for that bonus movement speed, so you can like dodge incoming skill shots. Also catch up to people. But now he's a lot stronger, but he's still not strong enough. You desperately want that last augment. When you have that one, then your basic abilities are going to slow. You're going to get slow on everything except for that ultimate persistent damage. It does not work on that because otherwise that would be quite OP. Just stay in the mid lane for as long as possible. You can roam sometimes like I did early on in this game, but it's definitely not something you are focused on doing. You want to stay mid. Get prior in the lane as soon as you have that E upgrade. Just constantly show in the wave. And if the enemy mid laner is roaming, guys, then he's going to lose a lot in the mid lane. He's going to lose the waves, and he might also lose a couple tower plays just because of how fast you're able to show in the wave. Really want to use that W properly. Make sure that people have to choose between getting inside that W zone if they want to damage you, or they just have to run away. You really want to pressure them with it, force them to take bad decisions, and then you want to abuse them. Even if your teammates get caught and such in the early game, guys, for example from people roaming and such, you're not able to do much unless you're teleport up. Focus on staying mid, focus on getting really good farm. So this is also the new Cosmic Drive. It was changed, so it gives a bit different stats right now. It gives you a lot of mobility, you also get a lot of AP. So what happens is like Electrocute, once you proc it, then you get a lot of bonus movement speed, and then you also get 40 ability power. You get 40 ability power until you leave champion combat. So with this item, you're gonna get more than 100 AP alone. Not only that, you also get a lot of mobility. That's very hard for people to escape from you. You also get a lot of HP and ability haste. So you get all the things you need from an item. Almost. I think this might get nerfed soon, as soon as people realize how strong this is on Viktor. But you get the mobility passive from the mythic item, you also get mobility from your Q, and then you get even more mobility from that Cosmic Drive, so you're gonna be insanely fast. Even for mobile champs, it's going to be really difficult for them to escape. If we almost took no damage, and that's because of that mage mythic passive. So that's how strong it is. Even if people catch you off guard, you know, you decide to face take a brush or something and a Talon tries to push you down, he's going to deal almost no damage if that mage mythic passive is up. So this Cosmic Drive definitely gives you so much AP. You just have to make sure that you activate it first, and the way you activate it is the same way that you activate something like a Electrocute. You have to damage a champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities. And then you get all those buffs. Absolutely insane, the mobility you get as well. It's going to be very strong in the late game. And I definitely think this is like his best build right now. It gives him so many stats. Sitting on a lot of gold right now, so going for like a massive burst build. If they don't have any magic resistance at this point, then you can go for rapid on Death Cap. But if you see people slowly start stacking those MR items, then you just build into the Void Staff. Mercury threats alone are not enough for you to build MR. You really want to make sure that people are itemizing into those MR items. You know, Spirit Visage, Wits End and such, and also that other MR tank item, they reworked this patch. If they build any of those, then you can itemize into Magic Pen. That mage passive, of course, does not work against the second part of Camille's Q, because that deals true damage. So that's a problem against champs that deal true damage, as mentioned early on. But against most other champs, it's going to be really strong. So it is an item that you can buy every single game. Just keep pressuring. And of course, the last augment, guys, gives you that Ryla's passive for free. meaning that all of your basic abilities are going to apply slows. It does not work on the ultimate persistent damage, but it works on everything else. So pretty much get a free Rylai's Crystal Scepter passive. And this is the point where it becomes harder to dodge your abilities, also way harder to dodge that second part of your E. On top of giving you that slow, it also makes it so your ultimate travels a lot faster. You saw that when I used my ultimate in the early game with the first point in it, you saw how easy Ari was able to escape it. Even though she does have that ultimate to escape, it's not going to be as easy for the other champs anymore. Because your ultimate travels a lot faster. So it can be used as a zoning tool, but you really want to make sure in teamfights you drop that straight on top of these carries. The AD carries, the assassins, the mages and such. Any squishy target, you're going to absolutely one-shot them at this point in the game. We need just enough gold for the Rabadons. I'm still focused on farming. We're still sitting on 10 CS per minute. We're not only looking for fights all the time, I'm still looking for the lanes where I can pick up farm. It's important that you balance it out, so you don't only go for kills the entire time. If you do so, then you're gonna fall behind in farm. That's why you see those Viktor players getting like 4 or 5 CS per minute. That's because they don't know how to pick up the waves. You need to time it. You need to constantly look at the side lanes after the laning phase. See when the minion waves are coming in, and then you want to plan ahead when you're going to base so you can pick it up. We're doing the Baron in the top side while Akali is fighting in the bottom side. Camille is of course really strong in the late game as well, so she got a solo kill. That does happen, even though it should not happen at this point in the game, but it is what it is. Just look at that burst damage, guys. Late game Viktor is like an assassin. He scales way better than most champs in the game. He has burst damage on a very short cooldown. You don't need your ultimate to burst people down with. You just need your E and your Q. You can hit people with both parts of your Q and that E and they're gonna die straight up. We have the Ravenous right now. This is the big power spike that you're playing for. You're gonna one-shot every single squishy in the game now, guys. This is the big power spike as well. You get a power spike every single time you get a passive upgrade, no ability upgrade. But the big one, that's this point in the game. You had the mythic item, you had the cosmic drive, and you had the Rabadons. This is why you start carrying for your team. It is a team fighting champ, meaning you don't flank all the time. You can flank if you can reach the carries. But most of the time you stay with your team. You try to hit as many people as possible with your damage, because your abilities deal AoE damage. If you can do that, you're gonna blow them up straight up. Just look at that insane damage output. It is a champ that can go for 1 versus 2s, 1 versus 3s and so on, just because of that AoE damage. And also his mobility makes it very hard to disengage from him. And if people try to engage on top of him, he's just gonna drop that W down. And then they're gonna be CC'd. So the further the game goes, the better Viktor becomes. It is one of the strongest late game champs for the mid lane, along with champs like the Kassadin, Veigar, Cassiopeia and such, and also Azir. The problem is getting there. You'll not get kills every single game. Sometimes you might also end up dying in the laning phase. Even though it's super important that you don't give away any kills in the early game, you might still end up dying. Just focus on farming. Don't go for those bad plays that your teammates will often try to do. If they do so, just ignore them. Focus on farming. Get the augments and the items you need, and then you start group up, fight for the objectives and win those team fights. You can split push on Viktor. It's a champ that's very strong in 1 versus 1s. When you split push, make sure that your teleporters up, because if something happens across the map, you have to make sure that you can TP in, otherwise your teammates might get killed and then the enemy team might take the dragons, the baron, the towers, or maybe even end the game, right? So make sure that if you split push, you're either close to your teammates, or you had TP if you're on the opposite side of the map. The next item will of course be the Void Staff, because people are starting to build MR, but we're also in the later stages of the game, so even if they don't, any of the tankier members will have decently high base MR, so it's important that we have some magic pen. You can see how strong that slow is. That was only from that E alone, and that Caitlyn just getting straight up one shot. This is the power of the late game Viktor. Even if she was even, like we had equally kills and equal XP, she would still end up getting one shot. That's how much damage you have on these late game killing mages. We also have that new soul from the new drakes. Some of them are really strong. The one that gives you that Guardian Angel passive, or rather Siren passive, is a bit too broken right now. I definitely think stuff like that should not be in the game. It's a very toxic mechanic, where even if you kill people, they still get rewarded because they can still do stuff for a short duration before they finally die out. But otherwise, the new mage items are pretty good. They're definitely helping out some of the mages that struggled a lot in the last season. And if you guys are wondering about the new keystone called First Strike, I have tested out, especially on Viktor. It's a very underwhelming keystone, guys. It feels really awful to use, doesn't really give you a lot of stuff in the early game. You barely get any gold at all. So I definitely don't think it's a good keystone to use on Viktor or most other champs. You are much better off using keystones like the Phase Rush, Electrocute. Those are the two main keystones on Viktor. Just keep pressuring in the side lane. Teammates are dying in the mid lane. You can't really do anything about it though. But if you push this far up, then you're still gonna pressure the opponents to come and defend. So they will not be able to push it mid, because now they're looking topside. They want to defend against you. So a couple members will recall just to be able to defend. So that's also another way that you can pressure people, even if your teammates die. Look at that burst damage, that is absolutely ridiculous. It's a late game scaling mage that also has the capabilities of an assassin through the burst damage. You can guide people very well, but something like a Camille is going to be very difficult just because of her mobility and also that true damage. We got straight up one shot right here, and that's with that second part of a Q alone. So you can definitely go for items like the Sonya's Hourglass if you think that you really need it. It is going to help out with those AD matchups. Not against true damage, but that Act 2 can really help you stall, so your basic abilities come back up and then maybe you can turn it around, or at least escape. The Sonya's Hourglass will be the final item. You have a lot of AP items to choose from. If they have tanks, then you can also go for the Demonic Embrace. There are a lot of items you can build, guys. Also, that new Shadow Flame item is also really good against squishy teams. If they have champs with a lot of shielding, because then it gives you that magic pen instantly, which works extremely well against squishies. So if you want that extra AP boost, then you can also go for that item. This is what I like to do a lot, guys, is that when my teammates are doing big objectives, I camp in spots where I think the opponent will face check just to try to cancel out the Baron attempt. This gives me kills a lot of times. This is definitely something you can also do, because it helps secure the Baron and you also get a kill on top of that. Now that we have the Baron, we have to start grouping because we are dying a lot, and that's how you end up throwing the game. So you want to group your team and then you want to siege as 5. When you have the Baron, then Viktor becomes really strong at sieging. People are going to get caught, you can't really do anything about it, guys. This is the point where Sonya's Hourglass would have become really good. So the J4 got us caught inside his ultimate, so he could not escape. Because Camille's ultimate did expire, so we could have run away, but then his ultimate was also up, so we got caught inside it and we ended up dying. But it is going to work out. This is pretty much what you have to do on Viktor. You stay back, and if you can reach the carries, then do so of course, but be very careful. You have insane damage, but you're also insanely squishy. So you cannot frontline for your team. You never want to frontline unless you can just straight up blow up the entire team. You want to let the frontline champs engage for you, like the J4 in this case. And you hit people. You hit whoever is in range of you until you can reach the carries, and that's when you use everything. So be very patient with this champ, focus on farming, and it should end up working out. But this is how you play Viktor. I hope this was helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching, and see you all in the next one.